December 20, 1989. At 12:45 a.m., the night sky over Panama City erupts in fire and thunder. American forces launched the largest combat operation since the Vietnam War. Over 27,000 troops attack simultaneously at multiple locations across Panama. This is Operation Just Cause, the invasion designed to capture Panamanian dictator Manuel Noriega, protect American lives, and restore democracy. In just 5 days of intense combat, American forces will overthrow Noriega's regime, but the operation will raise questions about American intervention that resonate to this day. Manuel Noriega rose through Panama's military ranks to become de facto ruler by the mid-1980s. As commander of the Panama Defense Forces, Noriega wielded absolute power despite maintaining a civilian government facade. Intelligence agencies had long known of his involvement in drug trafficking, money laundering, and arms dealing, but his cooperation with American intelligence during the Cold War had protected him from serious consequences. The CIA had worked with Noriega since the 1960s, valuing his intelligence on communist activities in Central America. By 1988, the relationship between Washington and Noriega had deteriorated irreversibly. 2 federal grand juries in Florida indicted Noriega on drug trafficking charges in February 1988, revealing his role in facilitating cocaine shipments from Colombia through Panama to the United States. The Reagan administration attempted to pressure Noriega to leave power through economic sanctions and diplomatic isolation, but the dictator refused to step down. He nullified elections in May 1989 when opposition candidates appeared likely to win, brutally beating opposition leaders Guillermo Endara, Ricardo Arias Calderón, and Guillermo Ford in full view of international observers. Images of blooded opposition candidates shocked the world. The Bush administration, which took office in January 1989, adopted a harder line toward Noriega. President George H.W. Bush, former CIA director who knew Noriega personally from intelligence cooperation, was determined to remove him from power. Throughout 1989, tensions escalated as American military forces in Panama conducted exercises designed to intimidate Noriega and prepare for possible intervention. The situation reached crisis point in December 1989. On December 15, Panama's National Assembly declared that a state of war existed with the United States and appointed Noriega as maximum leader with absolute power. That evening, 4 off-duty American military officers in civilian clothes were stopped at a Panama Defense Forces checkpoint near the Comandancia. When they attempted to drive away after being threatened, PDF soldiers opened fire with automatic weapons, killing Marine First Lieutenant Robert Paz and wounding another officer. PDF personnel also detained, beat, and sexually threatened an American Navy officer and his wife who had witnessed the shooting. These incidents provided the justification President Bush needed to authorize military action. On December 17, Bush authorized Operation Just Cause, approving invasion plans that had been developed over previous months. American military planners, who had been refining plans under the codename Blue Spoon, launched into final preparations. The invasion would begin in 3 days, time to achieve maximum surprise against PDF forces. Operation Just Cause was unprecedented in its complexity and scope. American forces would attack 27 targets simultaneously across Panama, overwhelming Panama Defense Forces before they could organize coherent resistance or threaten American civilians living in the Canal Zone. United States Southern Command, headquartered in Panama, commanded the operation under General Maxwell Thurman, a tough, demanding commander known for meticulous planning. Task force operations were led by Lieutenant General Carl Steiner, who coordinated the complex integration of special operations and conventional forces. American forces already stationed in Panama numbered approximately 13,000 troops, primarily supporting canal operations and training exercises. An additional 13,000 would deploy from the United States in the largest nighttime airborne assault since World War II, with paratroopers from the 82nd Airborne Division jumping into Panama under cover of darkness. The massive deployment was conducted in complete secrecy, with units told they were conducting routine exercises until hours before the invasion. The primary objectives were clear and specific: capture Manuel Noriega and bring him to justice in the United States, neutralize the Panama Defense Forces to prevent organized resistance, protect the approximately 35,000 American civilians living in Panama, and restore democracy by installing the legitimately elected government that Noriega had prevented from taking power. Secondary objectives included securing critical infrastructure like the Panama Canal, rescuing American prisoner Kurt Muse from Modelo Prison where he faced possible execution, and preventing Noriega's Dignity battalions, armed civilian irregulars loyal to the dictator, from conducting sabotage or attacking American targets. Special Operations Forces would spearhead the invasion in daring nighttime raids. Navy SEALs from SEAL Team 4 would destroy Noriega's personal gunboat and patrol craft to prevent his escape by water. Army Rangers from the 75th Ranger Regiment would conduct combat parachute jumps to seize airfields at Rio Hato and Torrijos Tocumen, securing them for follow-on forces. Delta Force, the Army's elite counterterrorism unit, would rescue Kurt Mews from prison in a high-risk helicopter assault and lead the hunt for Noriega himself. The 82nd Airborne Division would conduct combat parachute jumps to seize key installations throughout Panama City. The operation was scheduled for H-hour at 12:45 a.m. on December 20th, deliberately chosen because most PDF forces would be off-duty or sleeping, reducing their ability to mount coordinated resistance. The timing also allowed American forces to position themselves under cover of darkness and achieve maximum surprise. Military planners hoped that overwhelming force applied simultaneously would shock PDF forces into surrender and minimize casualties on both sides. At exactly 12:45 a.m., Operation Just Cause erupted across Panama with synchronized violence. F-117 stealth fighters, flying their first combat mission ever, dropped 2,000-pound bombs near PDF barracks at Rio Hato, creating shock and confusion without directly hitting the barracks in an attempt to minimize casualties. The psychological effect was devastating. PDF soldiers emerged from their barracks disoriented and terrified, many believing they were under artillery bombardment. Minutes later, Army Rangers from the 75th Ranger Regiment parachuted onto Rio Hato airfield under fire. Despite some PDF resistance from anti-aircraft guns and small arms, Rangers quickly secured the airfield and adjacent barracks, overwhelming defenders through superior training and firepower. Simultaneously, Rangers jumped onto Torrijos Tocumen International Airport near Panama City, the country's main airport and a critical objective. Rangers encountered heavier resistance here, with PDF troops firing from defensive positions around the airport complex. American AC-130 gunships, massive 4-engine aircraft carrying devastating weaponry, provided close air support, destroying PDF positions with precision fire from their 105mm cannons, 40mm Bofors guns, and 25mm Gatling guns. Within hours, Rangers controlled the airport and were preparing landing zones for transport aircraft bringing additional troops. Delta Force launched a daring helicopter assault on Modelo Prison to rescue Kurt Mews, an American electronics expert who had been imprisoned by Noriega for operating a clandestine radio station supporting the opposition. The rescue, conducted by Little Bird helicopters inserting Delta operators directly onto the prison roof, succeeded in freeing Mews from his cell. However, the helicopter extracting Mews was shot down by PDF fire shortly after takeoff, crashing in the street. The crew and Mews survived the crash but were pinned down by PDF forces until relieved by advancing American armored vehicles. Despite the complications, the rescue demonstrated the capabilities of American Special Operations Forces. Navy SEALs attempted to destroy Noriega's patrol boat at Paitilla Airport but encountered unexpectedly heavy and accurate resistance. PDF forces defending the airport, forewarned by the sound of combat elsewhere, were alert and opened fire with automatic weapons as SEALs approached across the open airport tarmac. The exposed approach provided no cover, and PDF forces killed 4 SEALs and wounded several others in the costliest special operations engagement of the invasion. The SEALs eventually secured their objective but at higher cost than anticipated. The 82nd Airborne Division conducted combat jumps at multiple locations throughout Panama, with paratroopers jumping into darkness over unfamiliar terrain under fire. Some paratroopers landed in obstacles or were injured during the jump, but most assembled quickly and moved to their objectives. The rapid deployment of thousands of paratroopers prevented PDF forces from organizing counterattacks and secured routes for additional forces arriving by air. At Fort Amador, a PDF installation located dangerously close to American housing areas where military dependents lived, the 4th Battalion, 6th Infantry attacked PDF forces to prevent them from threatening American civilians. Fighting was intense and personal as PDF troops, cornered with nowhere to retreat, resisted fiercely from fortified positions. American forces methodically cleared buildings using infantry supported by Bradley fighting vehicles and Apache attack helicopters. By dawn, Fort Amador was secured but several American soldiers had been killed or wounded. While American forces secured military objectives across Panama, finding Manuel Noriega proved far more challenging than anticipated. Intelligence indicated Noriega had been at the Comandancia, PDF headquarters in downtown Panama City, when the invasion began but had escaped in the confusion before American forces arrived. Delta Force operators and intelligence personnel conducted raids on multiple locations where Noriega might be hiding, his mistress's homes, safe houses, and properties owned by associates, but the dictator remained elusive, apparently moving constantly between hiding places. The assault on the Comandancia itself became one of the operation's most intense and destructive battles. The headquarters complex, a fortified structure in downtown Panama City surrounded by the densely populated El Carrillo neighborhood, was defended by PDF troops who recognized that surrender meant the end of their regime. American forces surrounded the complex and called for surrender through loudspeakers, but PDF forces inside responded with heavy automatic weapons fire and rocket-propelled grenades. American troops assaulted the heavily fortified headquarters using infantry, M113 armored personnel carriers, and Apache attack helicopters providing close air support. The fighting was savage and prolonged. American forces eventually overwhelmed the defenders through superior firepower, but the Comandancia was destroyed in the process. Fighting in Panama City neighborhoods became increasingly complicated by Dignity Battalion activity throughout the following days. These armed civilians, given weapons by Noriega's regime, conducted sniper attacks, ambushes, and hit-and-run assaults against American forces. Though lacking military training, these irregulars knew the terrain intimately and could blend into the civilian population. American forces responded with aggressive foot patrols, vehicle patrols, checkpoints, and cordon and search operations to locate weapons caches and eliminate the threat. Civilian casualties became perhaps the most controversial aspect of the operation and remain disputed to this day. The American invasion coincided with heavy combat in densely populated neighborhoods, particularly around the Comandancia in the El Carrillo district, a poor area with wooden structures built close together. Fires started during the intense fighting spread rapidly through the wooden structures. The fires destroyed thousands of homes and displaced tens of thousands of residents who lost everything they owned. The exact number of civilian deaths remains hotly contested, with official American estimates suggesting 200 to 300 civilian casualties while Panamanian human rights groups claimed figures of 1,000 or higher. Noriega remained at large for days as American forces conducted intensive manhunts throughout Panama. Intelligence officers tracked his movements through communications intercepts and informants. On December 24, Christmas Eve, Noriega appeared unexpectedly at the Vatican Embassy, seeking refuge and placing himself under the protection of the Catholic Church. This created an immediate diplomatic standoff. The Vatican Embassy was sovereign territory that American forces could not enter without causing a major international incident. American forces quickly established a tight perimeter around the Vatican Embassy. Then began one of the most unusual sieges in military history. American psychological operations specialists set up massive loudspeakers and began playing loud rock music continuously, blasting everything from heavy metal bands to Van Halen's Panama, in an attempt to prevent Noriega from sleeping and to pressure Vatican officials to expel him. The music siege became an international media spectacle, with journalists broadcasting images of American soldiers blasting rock music at a diplomatic mission. Vatican officials, caught in an uncomfortable position, negotiated with both American representatives and Noriega for 10 days. The Vatican wanted to facilitate Noriega's peaceful surrender while protecting its diplomatic status. Noriega hoped to negotiate exile to a third country rather than face American justice. However, the Bush administration insisted on unconditional surrender and immediate extradition to the United States to face drug trafficking charges. Pressure mounted steadily on the Vatican to resolve the situation. American forces maintained their cordon and music barrage. More importantly, Vatican officials recognized that Noriega could not remain in the embassy forever. Providing sanctuary to a wanted drug trafficker damaged the church's reputation, and the Panamanian people themselves wanted Noriega handed over to face justice. On January 3, 1990, after days of pressure and isolating conditions, Noriega walked out of the embassy and surrendered to U.S. forces. He was quickly flown to the United States, the first foreign head of state captured in a U.S. military operation and brought to American civilian courts. His 1991 trial in Miami presented extensive evidence of drug trafficking, racketeering, and money laundering. He was convicted and sentenced to 40 years in prison, later reduced to 30. Operation Just Cause officially ended on January 31, 1990, though U.S. forces remained for months to stabilize the country. American casualties totaled 23 killed and 325 wounded. The Panama Defense Forces lost around 300 soldiers, and civilian deaths likely reached into the hundreds. The operation achieved its main goals. Noriega was removed, the Panama Defense Forces were dissolved, and the elected government of Guillermo Endara took office. However, the invasion drew sharp international criticism, including a UN resolution condemning it as a violation of international law. For the U.S. military, the operation provided important lessons. The coordination between special operations and conventional forces proved highly effective, and new technologies, such as the F-117 stealth fighter's first combat use, demonstrated the precision strike capabilities that would become essential in the Gulf War and later conflicts. If you found this documentary informative, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more military history content. Share this story to spread knowledge about this important operation. Leave a comment below with your thoughts. Thank you for watching.